prophetically pretty much tell what's going on quickly. Trust me. God does the food supply. Watch food supply, and you'll know something. Our biggest resource, one reason I know the United States is so blessed, we've got more cotton picking food than anybody on the planet. And did you know that 2/3 of the corn still comes out of 4 states in the United States? I mean, can you even comprehend what I just said? We are so blessed. It is incredible. Now, I hope we don't lose that blessing. Anybody with me? I hope we don't lose that blessing. Judah lost that blessing. Israel lost the blessing. They had the blessing. They lost the blessing. They lost it. They had it and they lost it. Now, so we see that in the scriptures there before, if my people will humble, you got to understand, God sends some warning signs. God sends warning signs. One here we see, we see that when I give you the scripture right here, there's 3 warning signs there. And God said, and this is in light of the tabernacle, the temple. Then we know some stuff later happened, right? You got captivity. Now, so we got the drought. Not only was there drought, now the drought, because the drought is, you know, you've heard of the great fires down under. Because there's been such great drought, now the country's burning up. And so I can't look at Australia, and I can't look at that and say that's not a warning from God. I just can't do it. I can't. I mean, I can get into my brain side and say, no, Alan, you're carrying it too far. But if I'm in my spirit side, I'm like, no, I think that's a sign. But you got to understand something. God initiated it. You see, we are in a global world now. God speaks to the world. Abraham was the first Jew. With Abraham, God had a chosen people. Before the chosen people, there wasn't any chosen people, unless you want to say everybody was chosen people. In other words, God dealt with the earth pre-Abraham. With Abraham, he started dealing with the nation Israel as unto the earth. Pre-Abraham, it was earth. The day of grace that we're living in is just like pre-Abraham. There's neither Jew nor Greek, bond nor free. Are you with me? We're in grace. Pre-Abraham was grace. So God's dealing with the earth pre-Abraham. We're in the day of grace, no Jew nor Gentile, so God's dealing with the earth. So prophetically, I got to read the signs of the earth, not just to the nation Israel. Say, Alan, I'm with you. Okay? So we're reading the signs of the earth prophetically, these scriptures. Here we go, and we see the place is burning up. So now it says, then the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself and as a house of sacrifice. When I shut up the heavens, there's no rain, or command the locusts to devour the land. Was anybody heard of that in the last 6 months? Of course you have. Australia's eating. I don't know why I bless Australia's little heart. I think God does it in Australia, a lot of it, because there's a lot of land there. Really and truly, there's no people. And I don't know how much, like 90% of the place, isn't it, Ed? I'm not sure. Most of everybody lives on the coast. And then you got the Aborigines, or they're kind of out in there. But it appears to me God's doing some of these sign things to where there's the least populations is where it starts off. And with the drought and then the locusts, in which we know, it's kind of like when God gets a little stronger, he gets closer into people. Are you with me? And so we know that in Africa and in Australia, we have heard in the last 6 months, in our lives, the last 12 months, you've had drought in Australia, which has been going on, I think, 2 or 3 years. But we've heard of drought in Australia, and went to the point of great fires. And the last 6 months, we've heard of these locusts. Has everybody seen that on the news and stuff? Or if you haven't heard it, you need to go look at it if you're into grasshoppers. And here you can see the locust. It's just devouring. And as far as agriculture is concerned, it's eating everything in its path. It leaves nothing. It's as bad or worse than wildfire when a swarm of locusts come through. There's a night, afternoon, late picture. This one is actually Australia, I think, of the locust. So we see in Scripture where he says that he can hold the rain, and then he says he sends locusts. I mean, can anybody stop with your brain just a minute and say, well, why locusts? I mean, why a little grasshopper? Why God always used that as a plague? I don't know why he did, but he did. The grasshopper gets a bad name, I guess, but that is one of God's signs to us, is locusts and drought. These are some of the signs that God has used historically. Okay, now let's go down to the next verse, and it says, "Or send pestilence," which is epidemics, is what it is among my people. It's like well, that term could be, some translations it says epidemics. I'm this King James guy, so I have to translate it for some of you. Or send pestilence, it says, epidemics among my people, in which we know that's happening today. I'm not trying to be an alarmist here, but I am trying to be a realist with the Scriptures. And I'm just trying to say to a prophetic people, I cannot deny that why we're sitting here today, no congregation, why are we live streaming, is when you get into the third warning of Chronicles and the humbling and the repenting, God healing the land verse, there's 3 warnings that come before that verse. I'm here to stand before you, I believe, from God to say we're in our third warning. Now, to me, that's tremendously serious. And I have been through stages with this coronavirus, just like everybody else has. First you're kind of in denial, and then you try, it ain't that bad, and all that. You can kind of go through all these stages, and then all of a sudden, then the government's doing this person. I went through a conversation here just in the last day or two of one person was really upset with China. Alan, I think it's China. They're trying to destroy the United States and all that. And I said, listen, and we just had a discussion about the end times, and we were in total agreement. And I said, listen, you can't have it both ways. If you believe this is part of the end times or is a sign from God and want to blame China, I said, you got to blame God. Our problem's not with China. Let me make this declaration. I mean, I'm not for them buying us up and all of the above. I mean, I'm there too. I'm just saying we got a problem, but it's with God. That's where our problem is. Now, do we have different agents and things on the earth that are utilized? Yeah, I can go there with all of that. But the ultimate problem is if what I'm saying to you is true, we're having a problem with God. That's where our problem is. And so therefore, the 3 warnings, and as I was looking at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the third one. It starts coming closer home. I venture to say the drought in Australia, it bothered you a little, but, it didn't mess up your day. I'd venture to say you saw the locusts on TV, bothered you maybe a little more. Say, boy, that's bad. But I bet you when you got to the people, the coronavirus, where it affects humans, I bet you felt it deeper. And what that is, that's the way God deals. He starts off easy, and he's a graceful and merciful God. But his people, we do not need to be ignorant of what's happening. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to scare people or anything else, but I am trying to tell you, we got a God problem. There's where our problem is. And it's in our relationship with God is where we are. And that's what was happening in the book of Chronicles. That's what was happening with Solomon. That's what was happening there. Again, the issue here in this scripture is the temple. Our problem is God's dealing with the world today as a whole again. Now, he'll get back to the nation Israel, but right now, according to Romans chapter 11, God's called a blindness upon the nation Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. So it appears to me we're at the end of the fullness. Ever what that means? That's the reason I say it like that. I'm not sure what it means either, but I think we're at the end, closing up the end of this fullness. And we're seeing that God, this is a temple issue. It's a temple issue. And so we see that God's given these warnings, and he's given us, I think that we have seen the 3 warnings in the last 6 months, and I think we're into the 3rd one now. And let me say this on the 3rd one, the coronavirus, for whatever it's worth. And I'm a dairy farmer, and I deal, my livelihood is based off of viruses, believe it or not. If you're a chicken farmer, viruses control your life because they have to vaccinate chickens. I don't know how often. I'm not in the chicken houses business, but you vaccinate chickens. Anytime you get a herd of something together, you have to have some type of immunity because humans, whether you be... See, the coronavirus is a virus, and you got viruses in plants, you got them in animals, and you got them in humans. You got 3 things. We have a virus. Well, there's not a cure for a virus. You can't take an antibiotic for a virus. So there is, the only thing you can do with a virus is you can become immune to a virus. And the reason we can congregate today, and I've heard some people say, well, Alan, look at the flu virus. It killed 40, 50,000 a year or ever so often, ever how long they're figuring it there. And the coronavirus has killed 3,000 or 4,000. See, it's not a deal. And I'm like, well, that's not really. You see, the flu virus has saturated the planet, right? We've had it around a while, and the flu virus, to hold the death rate where we are, is because you got vaccines. If you didn't have vaccines, you probably have 1/3 of the earth dead right now, every year. I mean, the flu would just go out there until we started creating our own enough immune, and then we can start fighting it off. With the coronavirus, our problem is there's no vaccine yet. So we say, but up 3,000 or 4,000 died. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, but it hasn't saturated the earth. We got 3 in Georgia and 4 over here. And that's not saturating the earth. If you saturate the earth with nothing you can put a lid on it with, the only thing you can do is let people die. Some people get it and not die. Start building up an immune system in which now in 3 or 4 or 5 years we don't get it. Is everybody with me? So why are they saying when everybody's separated? Well, it's not bad. Well, the truth is it's not bad yet. Unless you're the one that got it and died. Then you say, well, this is pretty bad, right? If you don't get it, you say, this ain't no big deal. Well, the problem is it's not a big deal yet, but it sure bud could be quickly. This is the problem, and the reason it's a problem is we don't have a vaccine. Now, the reason I'm saying all this is, if you want to know how to pray, say, God, if we're right in what we're saying about if my people will humble themselves, we got to say something here, is that God's either allowed or released or done something. I think we got a God problem. We maybe got some China problems, but I don't think that's our big problem. I think our big problem is the God problem, and if we're wanting mercy from God, we need to pray that God will give us revelation of a vaccine quickly. And so what a vaccine means is you don't have to get it, right? You don't have to get it to get your immune system up. They give you, usually it's a kill virus, and that is it likened unto what? Let me tell you this. The first vaccine created was a smallpox vaccine. Not first virus, first vaccine. It was for smallpox. That was 1760s, I'm thinking. Somewhere along post, after Civil War and all that. And so you had this smallpox where the whole planet was dying. So it was smallpox. And it's this one guy, he noticed, he was a scientist or something, but he was doing research as quickly as he could, see what was happening and whatever. Vaccines had never been made. But he noticed people that milked cows didn't get smallpox. Now I'm not kidding, okay? This is not a joke. He noticed that people that milk cows. Now, what this means is, does anybody want a milking job at my place? He noticed that people that milk cows, in the early days, they called it the milkmaid vaccine.